and personally I wanted them to be reinstated, but it is what it is. And in a way they can use Wales as they can use Welsh rugby as an example, because the Warriors were doing well for a while, but how, just like us, their rugby didn't have the financial might, or they just weren't able to support, for whatever reason, 5 regions. And there's no, I mean, going to 4 regions for us and just regional rugby in general, it's no coincidence that we've been as successful as we have due to regional rugby, and even more so after going back to 4 regions. So I think they can look at us in terms of that. And a lot of the Force players have now gone to the Rebels with the coach. And personally, I mean, they've signed Will Genia as well, Hayla Petty, and I think, yeah, I think the Rebels. I'm backing the Rebels to be a dark horse in the competition this year. I think they they could really threaten the Brumbies and Waratahs in in terms of who goes through to the playoffs as the Australian group winner. Um, I think they could, yeah, I think they could really threaten the big boys of Australian rugby now, and possibly win the Australian group. The Waratahs, the players they've got there, Folau, Hooper, Foley, they should be doing better than they have been previously anyway. So fingers crossed they come good this year as well. And then the Brumbies, um, they've got Pocock to come back. They've got Kurandrani, Lealiafano. Um, you know, those I think it'll be those three will be the the runaway. It'll be between those three to top the Australian group. The Reds are really struggling at the moment, and they've lost the experience of Stephen Moore now, who's retired. Um, yeah, so I think it'll be the Reds and the Sunwolves at the basement of the Australian group, and then it'll it'll be I think it'll be a pretty close fought thing between the Rebels, the Brumbies, and the Waratahs in terms of who finishes top of the Australian group. And then in South Africa, the Lions. It was very harsh to see them have the man sent off in the final last year. They've got to the final 2 years in a row now. Had a home final last year as well, but lost to the Crusaders. Um, but I mean, if anyone was going to upset the odds last year, it was the Crusaders. Their record in the playoffs is unbelievable. They're the only team to win the Super Rugby title, playing all their playoff games away from home. Yeah, they've made history a lot of times in the playoffs. Um, but I think the Lions, in a way, I'd like to see, even though I want to see the New Zealand teams do well, and the Australian teams, I'd like to see the Lions possibly win it this year, because I just think I think maybe it's important for them to win it this year, because they've had a good team there, and sooner or later they're gonna have to make sure they win it, because otherwise it might get to the point where they're gonna lose confidence, and they just might never win it. They've been there in the final the last 2 times, so maybe soon it's more of a point that maybe soon they need to win it. Um, Otherwise, they might never know when they'll get a chance again. They've got a good draw. They've got the Crusaders and the Hurricanes both in South Africa. Um, I think the Lions will win the South African group, and then you've got the Bulls. The Bulls did a little bit better last year than they have done previously. I mean, for a side that's won it, 3 times, one of the most successful sides. It's a shame to have seen them struggling as much as they were. Hopefully they'll find their form this year. The Stormers as well. They they were really good last year, and I think they could be a threat as well. Um, and then just like in the Australian group, I think the the Jaguars and the the Jaguars will be pretty much at the basement of the group. I mean, they've got all the Argentina stars. Um, I'd like to see them. I'd love to see them do really well, and perhaps maybe they could, after having 2 years in the competition, maybe this coming year they'll surprise a lot of people. But you have to say, based on form going into this one, they might end up being at the bottom of the group. But hopefully, with all the Argentina internationals, they'll hopefully end up upsetting a few people in the group and finishing higher up the group than people think. So yeah, I mean, it's very exciting. And on the point of that, I know we have the global season is coming in 2020. So the Northern Hemisphere season will be starting from October to June. They've already confirmed that. I mean, as I said at the beginning, I feel that the introduction of the bonus points in the Six Nations as well, and just the way the Champions Cup and the Challenge Cup is now, we always see lots of tries, lots of thrilling games. You know, the Champions Cup and Challenge Cup are just as exciting. Our European competitions are just as good and just as exciting to watch as Super Rugby is now, and our Six Nations is just as exciting as the Rugby Championship as well.